Welcome. My name is Blake Reiter, and I'm the Director of Hospitality Research here at Lighthouse. And I am joined by Mr. Daniel Foreman. Daniel, could you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Daniel Foreman. I'm a commercial strategist here at Lighthouse, and I'm the host of the podcast that we have here. And I do a lot of our educational content, so videos and learning materials and stuff like that. But I also have a background in revenue management. So I was an RM for about 9 or 10 years before that.
Which is perfect considering the topic today. Today we are doing a read-through of our tech and AI in revenue management. This is our ebook, and you can actually access this book right now and follow along with us. If you look on your screen on the right side, you're going to see several little icons. The bottom icon, it looks like two pieces of paper on top of each other. If you click that icon, there's going to be a link right to the report, so you could pull it up right now. And if you're watching this not live, you can go to our website, mylighthouse.com. There's going to be a banner right on top of the screen where you can access it, and you can also access it by hovering over the resources tab on our website. So if you want to get this content and follow along or read it afterwards, you can do that easily. So today, real treat. This is our ebook, like I mentioned. And what we're going to be doing is walking through this ebook and showing you the highlights of all this great content. We did a survey, and we are going to walk through that right now. Okay? So the introduction, I'm going to kind of skip over. Take some time to yourself to read through that. But basically, what we did here is we wanted to conduct a survey to take the temperature of basically the general state of the hospitality revenue management industry, because we're really at an interesting time where technology and data access and data availability is kind of at an all-time high. So we wanted to look at the industry, really see the players in the industry, where do they stand on a lot of these issues that are shaping the industry that we're all playing in right now. So our methodology is on the screen right now. We had almost 1,300 responses to our survey, and you could see that they're very geographically diverse, with Europe, the US and Canada, as well as the Asia Pacific region, the most represented. But as you can see, Middle East, Africa, Latin America as well. You can see the roles are very diverse, everywhere from revenue management, GMs, sales, operations. And beyond that, we also surveyed different types of players within the industry. So global chains, independent hotels, management companies, regional chains, you name it. We wanted to really get a diverse set of opinions and get a broad spectrum of responses to really, nail where things stand in the industry. I'm going to skip the executive summary. Again, take some time to look at it yourself, because we're going to be going through everything here. So this is kind of the current state of affairs. After COVID, we had a lot of people leaving the industry. So one of the major challenges that a lot of hoteliers are facing is staffing. We're in an environment where hoteliers and hotel operators are being forced to do more with less. And beyond that, a lot of the resources and the personnel within hotels are being forced to be cross-utilized across the aisle, cross-functionally, in functions that they don't necessarily normally do. People are being asked to do data analytics or revenue management, even if that's not their background, because the industry is kind of short-staffed. So that's one of the major challenges. The other challenge that we're seeing is data complexity and kind of data overload, just given the availability and access to data. So I'm going to pause the read-through for a split second and share my screen. We have some interesting visuals that I think would be helpful to just kind of nail this point home, and then we'll shift back. But these data points are all in the ebook. I want to share these visuals. So what we see here, I have a few different visuals I want to share. The first one is rate changes. Now, what we see here is that in North America, the frequency of price changes is up by 50%, 50, since 2019. And worldwide, that number is 20%. So rates are changing much more regularly. And if we look at the individual markets, some of the major markets in the US, we could see that some, like Miami Beach, 90% up since 2019. Anaheim, similar, 80%. DC, 80%. Daniel, talk to me about this. You are a revenue manager. Could you make some sense of this?
Yeah, so I mean, my theory as to what's going on here is I think that this really shows kind of the adoption of, I think, automated RMS systems, I think is what's going on here. As those systems have become more accessible, especially like to independent hoteliers, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of these major markets here really, really increase in the amount of their rate changes. Because think about it, an automated RMS system, it can make rate changes overnight when a revenue manager's not awake, right? So I think that's probably what we're seeing here with that frequency of rate changes.
And beyond that, the amount of short-term rentals, this is fascinating. The amount of short-term rentals that are in the booking.com top 10s when you do a search is up astronomically. These are year-over-year stats on the screen right now. This is since 2023, last year. The amount of short-term rentals in that booking.com top 10 up 36.7% in a year in North America and up 10.5% worldwide. That is astronomical if you think about it, because now hoteliers and revenue managers and owners are having to contend with the short-term rentals. To be clear, short-term rentals are not a new thing. They've been around for a while, but the ease of access and the ability to book one simply is at an all-time high. So we see that is a major contention for hoteliers. And beyond that, rate codes. This is since 2019, over the last 5 years. The number of rate codes has increased by 150% in North America, more than double, and up 130% worldwide. Daniel, talk to me about rate codes for our viewers. What is a rate code and why is this important?
Yeah, sure. So just to add a little bit of context as to what a rate code is in this instance. So think about any time that you book a hotel, right? Let's say you book an advanced purchase rate, 7 days out, it's a 15% discount. That transaction is going to have a rate code with it, right? That rate code might be, ADV 15. And these rate codes, they give us some information about, the channel that's being booked, what the discount is. And, rate codes, this is a really big way that us as revenue managers, we track production. So to see that rising by that amount, that tells me that, hoteliers are implementing probably more complex like discount strategies, more packages, more promotions and things like that, I think is what's going on.
So obviously we have access to all the pricing data. That's what we have internally, but we actually want to take a quick poll of the audience. What are you guys actually seeing? So quick 10 seconds. In the past 5 years, has data analysis and revenue strategy become more complex? We just want to see what you guys are seeing. So quick yes or no, click vote. I'm going to leave this open just for a couple more seconds. Broadly speaking, we just want to see if what we're seeing from a data standpoint corroborates with what you guys are seeing in actuality. 3, 2, 1, let's see what that live poll shows. Wow, 89. Yes. Okay. So what we're seeing is very much the case. So the complexity is definitely real. Okay. So let's clear the screen on that and continue on. So listen, the data complexity is a serious issue. Let's dive a little bit deeper into our survey. Okay. We asked our survey respondents, what is the biggest challenge facing you as a revenue manager? And we asked people to list their top few responses. That's why this adds up to over 100. But the top 3, lack of time to analyze data, data silos, and lack of data trust. Those are the 3 big ones. So lack of time to analyze data, that and data silos kind of go hand in hand a little bit, because one of the major problems that we're seeing is that data is very segmented across different platforms, and revenue managers and operators are having to really cross the platforms and bring in data and spending a lot of time doing somewhat trivial tasks. Daniel, how much of an issue was this when you were a practicing RM?
Yeah, I definitely agree with, I think those top 3 are pretty much spot on. I agree with the number 1, right? The lack of time to analyze data. That was always my biggest problem, collating reports, running around from system 1 to system 2, and then bundling that report using like a macro-enabled workbook. That was kind of the really big, time waster for me. Back when I was doing revenue management way back when. But, even things like data overload and then lack of effective tools. Also, I would probably put that maybe like in my top 2 or top 3, just because, back when I did revenue management, 10 plus years ago, there were a lot of tools that I wish I had, that I kind of, had envy of other revenue managers that had those tools. But yeah, I think this top 3 especially is perfectly representative of what a lot of RMs are facing right now.
Yeah. And that lack of data trust, I think, one of the things when you're dealing with, when you have the data across silos and you're pulling it into different reports and you're trying to figure out if the data you're looking at is actually what you should be looking at, because there's a lot of manual work a lot of times with revenue management and trying to develop strategies. And if you're looking at the data that might have been copied or pasted incorrectly, that would be obviously a serious problem because you're making very high value decisions as a revenue manager. You're the one that's setting rates. So, your decisions are really driving the bottom line. So it's definitely a serious issue. Now, this is an interesting one. Okay. So we asked revenue managers on average, how many hours per day do you spend on data analysis? Now, 79% of revenue managers are spending less than 3 hours a day analyzing data. Now, on the surface, that may seem like a good thing, like they're not spending so much time on data analysis. But we actually view it quite the opposite. Because if you think about it, and Daniel, I need your opinion here because you did this job. So revenue managers want to be doing the data analysis. They don't want to be doing trivial tasks, gathering data to pull on reports that just takes up their time rather than doing the strategic analysis that's going to allow them to do their job well. Like that analysis, Daniel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the analysis that is going to be driving your RevPAR and going to be driving your bottom line, which is what you're getting bonused on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I see this is, pulling reports, putting reports together, doing the really tedious budgeting process, like that is not data analysis. Those are the menial tasks that I didn't enjoy doing. So this is more what I wanted to be doing, right? Like digging into the data, looking at, cool things like rate evolution and looking at my booking curve and learning my properties more. That's more what I wish I could have spent, 3 or 4 hours a day doing, but didn't have time for.
Exactly. Totally. And it's that data overload. It's those silos. Honestly, it really comes back to that. And this is we touched on this a little bit a couple of pages ago. So we asked the survey respondents, I have had to build new professional skills in order to effectively contribute across other functions. And we asked people to just simply say yes or no. And what you see on the screen is what their core function is. And did they agree with this statement? And you could see across the board, everyone, 2/3 or higher, everyone has said, yes, we've had to develop new skills to actually contribute effectively. And again, it harkens back to there being a staffing shortage and people having to contend with, not enough resources in their hotel. So this next page is very interesting. So we asked those people. So when it comes to the skills you've had to actually embrace, what did you have to learn and adopt? And you could see that the two biggest ones, data analysis and revenue management. So those are the responses that people had to learn those skills and adopt. So we're in a situation where someone whose background might be in marketing, doing data analysis or revenue management. And that's not to say they can't, but it's to say that their background is not that. So honestly, it really comes back to a situation where the ease of tools and having effective tools that will illuminate the insights that you need to make those decisions, that is much more important than ever, because you may be having someone setting rate whose background and formal training is not in setting rate. So if you don't have the right tools that can show the insights you need to make those decisions, then you're going to have potential issues there. So, you have a couple of quotes here. And I urge you to take a look at those quotes. But we had a lot of open-ended questions on this survey. And these are real responses that people said that these are the issues that we are facing. Daniel, was this an issue when you were practicing RM, that having to work with other people whose backgrounds weren't necessarily in revenue management?
Yeah, and my perspective as a revenue manager was that what I found was sometimes I would have to do things that didn't really necessarily fit within the RM's role. Now that's changing a lot more now, where revenue managers are kind of seen more as like overall commercial strategists for their properties, but the way I see it is, there were times where I was an RM doing revenue management stuff, but then I was also kind of having to do sales functions as well, right? Like responding to RFPs and doing all that stuff, which wasn't really originally my job description.
Yeah.
And then also too, really getting involved on the digital marketing side. So I think that's very much what revenue managers are having to do now is more of like that sales and marketing and kind of being that, jack of all trades, basically.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that top quote, I've become more adaptable to change, quickly learning and adapting to new tools, technologies, and methodologies used in marketing, sales, and operations to stay relevant and effective in a dynamic environment. I think that says it all. So this is now, we wanted to understand, are the tools that revenue managers need, do they have access to them? Are the companies investing in the tools that revenue managers want and need? So the bottom of the page, I think, kind of sums up the key takeaway for each one of these charts. So on the left, so I have all the tools I need to effectively analyze data for my job. And at the bottom, you can see only 50% of revenue managers feel that they have the tools they need. Half of the revenue managers that responded don't have the tools they actually need. The middle one, the technology investments my company is making with regard to revenue management align with my needs. You could see that revenue managers feel the least aligned with their company's technology investments. And that's a serious problem, because if a company is investing in technology, they really should be taking the temperature of the people that are using the technology to make sure that that's what they need. Because again, the revenue managers are the people that are setting rate, making those decisions that are really bringing in revenue. There needs to be open lines of communication, and there needs to be effective, corroboration between both parties. On the right side, my company should invest more in data analysis tools. Revenue managers, second only to marketing in advocating for tech investment. So revenue managers are the ones that, along with the marketers, that want more resources because they need it to do their job. Daniel, when you were practicing as a revenue manager, did you feel you had the tools you need? Did you feel there was a lack? Was there a gap?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So just thinking, just kind of out loud of like things that I really felt like I needed in a previous role, it was really like the business intelligence-y side of things, and then as well as like forecasting and budgeting. So those were the ones that were really, really manual and done in Excel. So those were what I talked about earlier when I was kind of like envying other revenue managers that I saw with other cooler tools. That was really what I was, losing a lot of time on was manually budgeting and using Excel essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's that manual work. This was just a quick hitter. I have all the tools I need to effectively analyze data for my job. 1 means you disagree strongly. 5 means you agree strongly. Just simply rate this. And the average here was 3.4. So you could see that it's tepid at best. People are not feeling like they have all the tools they need to analyze data. So I think it really speaks for itself. So AI, this is the hot button topic in our industry, especially in revenue management. This is where we kind of shift into, is AI the answer? Is this where our industry is heading? So first, let's establish a baseline. How does your company currently use AI for revenue management? Now, the most common response was we/I don't use AI. And 37% of people said we don't use AI. That was the most common response. But if 37% of people don't use AI, Daniel, what does that mean?
Almost 2/3 must be using it.
63% use it. So a little more than half are saying they use it. And we see that the most common uses, data analytics, pricing decisions, and market analysis. So these are fairly labor intensive, fairly time consuming processes that companies are leveraging AI to take the burden off their personnel, to free up some time, and hopefully use that technology to find insights that might otherwise be difficult to uncover. So it's those data intensive, labor intensive traits, skills. So how much of an impact does AI have on your company's current revenue management strategy? Again, this is a simple question. Where are we on this? And we could see that 3, the middle, that was the most common response. So while we know that people are starting to adopt it, it does seem that we are still kind of in the infant stages, with 3 being the most common in terms of the current impact it has on revenue management. So it's definitely starting to get common, but still kind of in the early adopter stage as we see. But what I want to highlight on this slide specifically is that quote. I love this quote. I believe the hotel industry will adopt AI faster than other technology based on availability, cost of use, and need due to the shortage of skilled workforce. These themes were kept coming up as we were reading those open-ended responses because of the situation we're in. The reality is, we said it, people are the labor shortage. Think about how many times you go into a restaurant and you see a lot of tables but that are open and available, but you still have to wait. It's a common thing in the hospitality industry that people left. And it's because they don't have servers. We don't have people on the front lines of our hotels. And we are being forced to adapt. And you see that the availability of this technology will allow us to actually take advantage of the fact that we don't have those people in the front line. So who is using AI? Top, we don't use AI. The number one group that said we don't use AI is independent hotels at 45%. The lowest number on that was global chains at 30%. So we see that it's kind of those bigger players that are more commonly using artificial intelligence at the moment. Bottom question, we use AI for data analytics. Global chains, most common, 40%. Independents, least common, at 27%. So right now, it's interesting. We are seeing that there's a clear split between the big players using it and the independents not yet using it. So we know that we said it was a 3. That was how much of an impact AI currently has on the revenue strategy of the industry. So right now, we're at a bit of a point where we'll see where things go, but we don't want the independents obviously to fall behind, but that's kind of where we are at currently. This is a question we asked to understand portfolio sizes. We saw a clear distinction between the smaller portfolios and the larger portfolios. So we use AI for data analytics. 11 plus properties, bigger portfolio, 36%. 1 to 10, 33%. Using it for AI for pricing decisions. Again, larger portfolio, 38%. Smaller portfolio, 33%. And then on the flip side, we don't use AI. Smaller portfolios were clearly ahead. So Daniel, what do you make of this? Because obviously you've had different portfolio sizes. How much of a benefit do you think it would be to a larger portfolio versus a smaller portfolio to have access to this technology?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that this really ties in with like economies of scale, right? So and again, it's going to vary wildly, like based on the company. But I know from my experience, when I had a portfolio of hotels, it was usually between, let's say, like 12 to 16 hotels, which I think is pretty normal. So when you have a portfolio of that size, that's typically, I think, where you can build some of those economies of scale, right? So if you roll out an AI solution that saves you, 10 minutes per hotel per day, that really, really adds up for an RM with a portfolio of my size. That was, 12 to 16. Now for the smaller portfolios, so maybe like independent hotels, luxuries, boutique hotels, something like that, the economies of scale probably aren't there as much. So I think that's why we're seeing like the indies not adopt AI quite as much, and that adoption's a little bit lower with the smaller portfolio sizes.
Perfect. Okay, I know we have about 6 minutes left, so we'll probably go a little bit quicker on these, but just to kind of touch again on the high level points. So boosting efficiency and revenue management, we wanted to understand where people view the main benefits of AI. And first, by a mile, time savings and increased productivity and improved RM revenue management decisions. So again, not having to spend so much time gathering data across silos, making reports that otherwise could be done in an automated fashion, and improved RM decisions. Again, that data trust, looking at data that might have been compiled on a manual basis, that's an issue. Now we can make those decisions more confidently, knowing that we are looking at the right data. So this is not to say that AI is without its potential challenges. We asked people, what are the concerns around AI? Job security, that was a big one. People being concerned that their jobs may be overtaken by artificial intelligence. But one of the quotes that we saw that was most really jumped out to us was that AI is not meant to replace the person. It is meant to support the person such that the decisions are more apparent and more readily available. One of the other things that was very common was the absence of personal touch, and saying that this is a high touch industry. How can we actually, shift to computers taking personal jobs? And the way we view it actually is quite, again, the opposite, because right now we're in a situation where a lot of operators are being forced to sit at their desk and spend time, again, compiling reports, trying to find insights that might be hard to glean out of the data. using artificial intelligence will make those insights more apparent and free up those operators' time to actually be on the floor, be on the front line, engage with your guests and your customers rather than spending hours on menial tasks. So we view it as a way to actually bolster the personal touch. Lack of local knowledge and intuition. Daniel, when you are an RM, obviously you see a big portfolio. How important is it to know that local market?
Yeah, it's super important. But just to kind of back up to what you were saying about, job security and that sort of thing, we have our own RSS team here at Lighthouse, so Revenue Strategy Services team that, they are revenue managers. And, that team, even with an AI solution that we've rolled out, which is AI Smart Summaries, that's not taking anyone's job, right? Like we're still growing that RSS team. So really all that's happening there is the AI solutions that we've rolled out are giving them time back to where they can build that, that rapport with their clients and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's hugely important. And thankfully, that's kind of what our team now has more time to do, is to, build those relationships with the clients and then really learn their local markets and that sort of thing.
Okay, I know we have 3 minutes left. So these are the benefits. I think we largely focused on these a bit before. Cost reductions, increased efficiency, improved forecasting. These kind of are the themes that we've been speaking about much of this presentation. So the future, where are things going? Scale from 1 to 5. How much of an impact will AI have on your company's revenue management strategy? 5 was ahead by a mile. If you look at 5 plus 4, we're talking almost, 3/4 of the survey. When you add in 3, it's almost the entire survey. So it's very apparent that people realize the way that things are going. This slide I'm going to skip for now, but just so you know, if you want to see what the geographical distinctions are in the responses, US, Canada, different parts of the world, how different parts of the world are considering AI, this is where you want to go. And then last but not least, we have the executive summary slides, which again, I'm going to skip because they're really just summarizing everything that we discussed over the last 28 minutes. So in summation, listen, we know that where the industry is heading. We're in a situation where data is complex, data overload, and that's honestly why Lighthouse exists. We're trying to take a lot of data and make it as easy to digest and consume and make impactful decisions for you guys to make it as simple as possible. So right now, quick poll on the screen. If you hit yes, you can get someone will reach out to you from Lighthouse. You can get a demo. Simple as that. All you got to do is hit yes and hit vote. Otherwise, thank you again for joining us. Quick note, we'll be doing these every single month. Next month, Daniel and I will be back. We're doing a data story. I'm really, really excited about this one. What we're going to be doing is diving into hotel pricing data and seeing how professional sports, wins and losses actually impact the pricing data for hotels. So we want to see how actual results of sports impact the pricing in your markets. It's going to be super interesting. We've been researching this for a while, and the data is amazing. So definitely look in your emails. We'll be advertising it, of course, to make sure that you guys have access to the webinar. We hope you guys attend. We hope you guys found this interesting and insightful. Thank you so much. I am Blake Ryder.
I'm Daniel Foreman.
Thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.